I am Mason, 34 years old, and the last thing I remember before my world went black was the look of pure, unfiltered hatred in my own brother's eyes, followed by the sensation of his boot slamming into the center of my back. Before I tell you how a hidden camera saved me from a life of prison and paralysis, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I read every single one of them. You know, people always tell you that your home is your sanctuary. It's supposed to be the one place where the chaos of the world can't touch you. I built my sanctuary with my own 2 hands. I started my real estate business from a garage with a loan I paid back with interest, and 10 years later, I was living in a smart home that I designed myself. It had everything: voice-controlled lights, automated security, imported marble floors. It was my pride and joy. But that Saturday afternoon, my sanctuary turned into a slaughterhouse. Started like it always did with Caleb. Money. My brother Caleb is 30 years old. In our family, he is the golden boy. He was the high school quarterback, the prom king, the one with the winning smile that could charm the wallet out of a nun's pocket. But charm doesn't pay bills, and Caleb had a lot of them. He had a gambling problem that my parents, Robert and Eleanor, liked to call bad investment luck. I was in my home office reviewing some contracts for a commercial lease when I heard the front door slam. I didn't even need to look at the security feed to know it was him. Caleb had a specific way of walking, heavy, entitled, like the ground owed him something. He stormed into my office without knocking. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt was wrinkled, and he smelled like stale whiskey and desperation. "I need 50 grand, Mason," he said. "No hello. No asking how I was. Just the demand." I put my pen down and took off my reading glasses. "No. I'm not asking, Mason. I'm in deep. These guys, they aren't banks. They break legs." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you bet on ponies or whatever it was this time," I said, standing up. I was tired. I was so tired of being the ATM for this family. "I paid off your credit cards last year. I bailed you out of that DUI charge 3 years ago. I am done, Caleb. Get out of my house." Caleb's face turned a shade of red I'd seen 1,000 times before. It was the face of a spoiled child who had finally been told the toy store was closed. "You think you're better than me? Just because you got lucky with some houses? Mom and Dad say you're selfish. They say you hoard it all. Mom and Dad are welcome to sell their retirement condo to help you," I said, walking past him toward the hallway. "But my wallet is closed. Now, leave, or I'm calling the police." That was the trigger. I saw his fist clench, but I didn't think he would actually touch me. We were grown men. We weren't teenagers fighting over the remote control. I turned my back to him to walk down the main staircase toward the front door. I wanted to open it and gesture for him to leave. I reached the top of the stairs. It's a long, curved staircase, 20 steps of polished hardwood. Beautiful to look at, deadly to fall down. I heard the rush of air behind me, a grunt of exertion. "You selfish prick." I didn't have time to turn around. I felt a massive impact right between my shoulder blades. It wasn't a shove. It was a kick. A full-force, Spartan-style kick meant to do damage. My feet left the floor. For a split second, I was weightless. I remember seeing the chandelier hanging above the foyer and thinking, absurdly, that I needed to change one of the bulbs. Then gravity took over. I didn't tumble. I smashed. My body hit the 4th step, cracking my ribs. The momentum carried me forward, and I cartwheeled uncontrollably. My shoulders struck the banister, shattering the wood, and then I fell the rest of the way, bouncing like a rag doll until I landed at the bottom of the foyer on the marble floor. The sound was the worst part. It sounded like a dry branch snapping, but louder, wet, sickening. Crack. I landed on my back. The air left my lungs instantly. I tried to inhale, to scream, but my diaphragm was paralyzed by the shock. I lay there, staring up at the high ceiling, gasping like a fish out of water. Pain is usually sharp. This wasn't sharp. This was a tidal wave. It started in my lower back and radiated outward, white-hot and electric. But then, something even more terrifying happened. I tried to move my legs to get up. Nothing happened. I sent the signal from my brain. Move right leg. Move left leg. It was like dialing a phone number and getting a deadline. My legs were heavy, dead weight. Panic, cold and absolute, washed over me. Mason! I heard voices. My parents. They had been in the living room. They must have arrived earlier while I was working. They had a key code. I had forgotten they were there. My mother, Eleanor, came into my field of vision. She looked down at me. Her hand was over her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. Then I saw Caleb at the top of the stairs. He was panting, looking down at his handiwork. He didn't look horrified. He looked relieved, or maybe just annoyed that I was still making noise. "He fell," Caleb shouted down. I tried to grab him, Mom. He tripped on the rug. I wheezed, trying to get words out. "He pushed me." My father, Robert, stepped into view. He looked at me, then he looked up at Caleb. He didn't rush to my side. He didn't check my pulse. He walked over to the front door and locked it. "Robert, look at his legs," my mother said, her voice trembling. "They aren't moving. He kicked me." I managed to choke out again. The pain was making my vision blur. Black spots were dancing in front of my eyes. "Shut up, Mason," my father hissed. He knelt down next to me, not to comfort me but to inspect the damage. "You slipped. Do you hear me? You slipped. Call 911. I begged. "We have to think," Robert said, standing up and pacing. "If we call 911, the police come. If the police come, they ask questions. Caleb is already on probation, Eleanor. If he gets a violent charge, he goes away for 5 years. Minimum. I don't care." I wanted to scream, but it came out as a gurgle. "I can't feel my legs." "We can't let him go to jail, Robert," Mom said. She was crying now, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Caleb, who was slowly walking down the stairs, stepping over the blood that was starting to pool from a gash on my head. "He attacked me," Caleb lied smoothly. "I was defending myself. It was self-defense." "Liar," I whispered. "Okay," Robert said. He took charge. "Here is what we do. Mason, listen to me." He grabbed my face, his fingers digging into my cheeks. "You tripped. You were drinking. You tripped and fell. That is the story. If you tell them Caleb touched you, you destroy this family. Do you understand?" I stared at him. This was my father, the man who taught me how to tie a tie. He was looking at his broken son and bargaining for the safety of the monster who broke him. "Call help." I was fading. The pain was becoming a dull roar. "Call the ambulance," Robert told Eleanor. "But tell them it was an accident. And Caleb, go to the security room. Now." "The cameras?" Caleb asked, eyes wide. "Delete it," Robert commanded. "Wipe the server. Format the drives. Everything from the last 2 hours. Go." Caleb ran toward the hallway that led to the server room. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. They thought they could erase this. They thought they could edit my murder attempt into a blooper reel. The ambulance arrived 10 minutes later. By then, Caleb had returned from the server room, giving my father a thumbs up. My mother was holding my hand, playing the part of the distraught mother perfectly for the paramedics. "He just tumbled," she sobbed to the EMT. "He's been working so hard lately, maybe he was dizzy. Please save my baby." "Sir, can you hear me?" The paramedic shone a light in my eyes. "Can you move your toes?" "No," I mouthed. "We have a spinal injury. Possible L4, L5 fracture. We need to airlift him. The local hospital isn't equipped for this trauma." They loaded me onto a stretcher. The movement was agony. It felt like my lower half was being ripped away from my upper half. As they wheeled me out the front door, I saw my parents standing in the foyer. "We'll follow you in the car," Robert said to the paramedics. But as the doors of the ambulance closed, I saw them turn back. They weren't heading to their car. They were heading back into my house. They weren't coming with me. They were staying behind to sanitize the crime scene. They were staying behind to make sure there was no evidence left to send their golden child to prison. The helicopter ride was a blur of noise and vibration. I was strapped down, immobile, alone. The vibration rattled my broken spine, sending fresh waves of torture through my nervous system. I thought I was going to die up there in the sky. But as the darkness finally took me, one thought anchored me to the earth. One tiny, sharp shard of memory that my father, in his panic, had forgotten. Baron, my Doberman. I had installed a hidden camera in the hallway plant pot specifically to watch Baron when I was at work, because he liked to chew the baseboards. It wasn't connected to the main security server. It was a standalone unit with a memory card, and it was pointed directly at the top of the stairs. Waking up from a coma or deep sedation isn't like in the movies. You don't just flutter your eyes open and ask for water. You fight your way up through layers of heavy, suffocating mud. My first sensation was the smell. Antiseptic and floor wax. The smell of a place where people come to die or get fixed. Then came the sound. The rhythmic, incessant beeping of machines. Beep, beep, beep. It was the soundtrack of my new life. I opened my eyes. The light was blinding. I tried to lift my hand to shield my eyes, but it was heavy, strapped down with 4 lines. "He's awake," a voice said. Not a family member. A stranger. A face came into view. A man with kind eyes and graying temples. He was wearing a white coat. "Mr. Miller? I'm Dr. Julian. I'm your neurosurgeon." I tried to speak, but my throat felt like I had swallowed a handful of razor blades. "Water," I croaked. A nurse held a straw to my lips. The cool liquid was a blessing. I swallowed, coughed, and tried to sit up. "Don't try to move," Dr. Julian said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You've had a major surgery, Mason. You've been under for 3 days. 3 days? My legs," I whispered. The fear came rushing back. I couldn't feel them. I could feel the sheets on my chest, the 4 in my arm, but below my waist, nothing. Just a terrifying, empty void. Dr. Julian sighed. It was the sigh of a man who has had to deliver bad news too many times. "Mason, the fall caused a burst fracture of your L4 and L5 vertebrae. Bone fragments compressed your spinal cord. We went in and decompressed it, fused the spine with titanium rods. But, am I paralyzed?" I asked. The words tasted like ash. "There is significant swelling," Dr. Julian said diplomatically. "We won't know the extent of the permanent damage for weeks, maybe months. You have some sensation in your upper thighs, which is a good sign. But right now, yes, you are paralyzed from the waist down." I closed my eyes. Tears leaked out, hot and stinging. I was 34. I ran 5 miles every morning. I hiked on weekends. I built houses. And now, I was a head on a stick. "Your family is here," Dr. Julian said. "They've been waiting outside. Do you want to see them?" My heart rate spiked. The monitor beeped faster. Beep, 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 beep. "No," I wanted to say. "They did this." But before I could speak, the door opened. They didn't wait for permission. Robert and Eleanor walked in, followed closely by Caleb. They looked refreshed. My mother was wearing fresh makeup. Caleb was wearing a new leather jacket, one that looked suspiciously expensive. My father looked stern, like he was walking into a board meeting. "Oh, Mason!" Mom rushed to the bed. She didn't hug me. She patted my hand, careful not to disturb the tubes. "Thank God you're awake. We were so worried." "Get out," I rasped. Dr. Julian looked surprised. "Mr. Miller?" "It's the medication," Robert said quickly, stepping forward. "He's confused, doctor. The trauma." He looked at me, his eyes hard as flint. "Mason's son, calm down. You're safe now." "You left me," I said, staring at him. "You stayed to delete the tapes." Robert laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Delete tapes? Mason, you're hallucinating. The police already checked the system. It malfunctioned during the storm last week. Remember? You told me you needed to fix it. Gaslighting. They were rewriting reality right in front of me." "I didn't slip," I said, looking at Caleb. He was leaning against the wall, chewing gum. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He kicked me. Doctor, Eleanor said, turning to Dr. Julian with tears in her eyes. Real tears. She was an incredible actress. He's been saying crazy things since the accident. He has a problem. A problem? Dr. Julian asked. Pills, Robert said gravely. Painkillers. He's been addicted for months. The business stress got to him. We think he was high when he fell. That's why he was so unstable on the stairs. My jaw dropped. You lying. Shoo. Mom stroked my hair. It made my skin crawl. We're not judging you, honey. We just want you to get help. We told the police about the addiction, so they would understand why you were acting so erratic. They had planted the narrative. They had painted me as a junkie to discredit anything I said about Caleb. If a junkie says his brother pushed him, it's paranoia. If a sober businessman says it, it's a crime. Doctor, could we have a moment alone with our son? Robert asked. Dr. Julian looked hesitant. He looked at me, then at the monitor. 5 minutes. Do not upset him. The doctor and the nurse left the room. As soon as the door clicked shut, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Robert's fake concern evaporated. He leaned in close to my face. I could smell his expensive cologne. Listen to me closely, Mason. The police have ruled it an accidental fall. The case is closed. If you try to reopen it, if you try to drag Caleb into this, I will make sure everyone knows about your drug problem. I will testify that you were suicidal. I will have you declared mentally incompetent. You would do that to your own son? I asked. I am protecting my son, Robert said, glancing at Caleb. Caleb has a future. You? Look at you. You're a cripple now. Do you really want to send your brother to prison and leave yourself with no family to take care of you? I don't need you, I spat. Oh, you will, Mom said softly. Who is going to push your wheelchair, Mason? Who is going to change your diapers? You need us. So stop this nonsense about a kick. You fell. Say it. I looked at Caleb. You're just going to let them do this? Caleb shrugged. You should have just given me the money, Mason. You always have to be the hero, don't you? Well, look where being a hero got you. I remembered when we were kids. I was 12, Caleb was 8. He had thrown a baseball through the neighbor's window. When the neighbor came out screaming, Caleb pointed at me and cried. I took the blame. I mowed the neighbor's lawn for a month to pay for it. I had been taking the blame for Caleb my whole life. Get out, I said, closing my eyes. I'm tired. We'll be back tomorrow, Robert said, straightening his tie. Think about what I said. We are family, Mason. Family protects each other. They walked out. I lay there in the silence, listening to the beep 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 of the monitor. They thought they had won. They thought I was broken, physically and mentally. And physically, they were right. I couldn't feel my legs. But mentally, the rage that was building inside me wasn't hot. It was cold. It was ice. They forgot one thing. I wasn't just a businessman. I was a structural engineer by training. I knew how to build things, and I knew how to find the cracks in a foundation. And my parents' story had a crack. A big one. Baron's nanny cam. I just prayed they hadn't found it. The next morning, the reality of my situation began to set in. The nurses came in to turn me so I wouldn't get bed sores. The humiliation of having two strangers roll your limp body over like a sack of flour is something you can never prepare for. I just stared at the wall, biting my lip until it bled. Around 10 a.m., a detective walked in. Detective Wyatt. He looked like he had seen it all, rumpled suit, tired eyes, a notebook that had seen better days. Mr. Miller, he said, pulling up a chair. I'm Detective Wyatt. I'm handling the investigation into your incident. It wasn't an incident, I said, my voice stronger today. It was assault. Wyatt nodded slowly. Your father told me you might say that. He mentioned you've been under a lot of stress. Confusion is common with head trauma. I'm not confused. My brother kicked me down the stairs because I wouldn't give him $50,000 for gambling debts. Wyatt scribbled something in his notebook. We spoke to your brother. He says he was in the kitchen when he heard you fall. He says he ran out and found you. He's lying. We checked the security system, Mr. Miller, Wyatt said, looking up. The hard drives were wiped. Your father said there was a power surge during the storm last Tuesday. The logs confirm the system has been offline for days. That's a lie, I said, my heart hammering. I checked the feed on my phone that morning. It was working. They deleted it while I was being airlifted. Wyatt looked skeptical. Why would parents delete footage that could prove what happened to their son? Unless they are protecting the son who did it, I finished. Wyatt sighed. Look, without video evidence, it's your word against 3 witnesses. Your parents back up Caleb's story. And, frankly, with the medical history your parents provided, the addiction? I laughed bitterly. I don't even take aspirin, detective. Test my blood. Do a hair follicle test. You won't find anything except the morphine this hospital is pumping into me. Wyatt paused. That clearly made him think. We did run a tox screen when you were admitted. Standard procedure for trauma. And it was clean, Wyatt admitted. No opioids. Just alcohol. Wait, no. 0 alcohol too. My parents said I was drunk and high, I said. So if the tox screen is clean, they lied to you. And if they lied about that, what else are they lying about? Wyatt closed his notebook. The sleepy look in his eyes vanished. He was interested now. I'll look into it. But Mr. Miller, proving they deleted the footage is nearly impossible if the drives were formatted correctly. Unless you have something else. I hesitated. If I told him about the nanny cam now, and he went to the house with a warrant, my parents might have time to destroy it. Couldn't risk it. I needed someone I could trust to get it first. Not yet, I said. But keep the case open. Please. I'll do my best, Wyatt said and left. As soon as he was gone, I asked the nurse for my phone. I'm sorry, honey, she said. Your parents took your personal effects. They said they wanted to keep them safe for you. Of course they did. They took my phone so I couldn't call anyone. They were isolating me. I need to make a call, I said, putting on my most authoritative voice. It is my legal right. Bring me a hospital phone. She brought one. I dialed the only number that mattered. Elijah. Elijah and I had been friends since freshman year of college. He was a cybersecurity specialist who worked for a defense contractor. He was the kind of guy who could find a needle in a digital haystack, and more importantly, he hated my brother Caleb. Hello. Elijah's voice. Eli, it's Mason. Mason. Dude. I've been trying to call you for 3 days. Your mom told me you were in a medically induced coma and couldn't have visitors. She said you tried to hurt yourself. What? Yeah, she's telling people you jumped. Suicide attempt. Because of the drugs, my blood ran cold. They weren't just covering up the assault. They were destroying my reputation to ensure that even if I recovered, no one would believe me. Eli, listen to me. I didn't jump. Caleb kicked me down the stairs. I'm paralyzed. Silence on the other end. Then a low, dangerous growl. I'm coming there. I'm going to kill him. No, I shouted. Listen, I need you to do something else. I need you to be a thief. What do you mean? They wiped the main security server. But they don't know about the nanny cam. The one I set up for Baron. The plant pot cam? Elijah remembered. I had shown it to him once when we were testing out some spy gadgets for fun. Yes, it's in the hallway, 2nd floor, inside the fake ficus plant. Points right at the stairs. It has a local SD card. It's not on the network. If they haven't thrown the plant out. Mom loves that fake plant. She bought it. She won't throw it out. But you have to get it before they realize what it is. You have to break into my house, Eli. Your parents are staying there, right? Yes, they've practically moved in. They're probably looking for my safe combination right now. Okay, Elijah said. I'm on my way. I'll be at the hospital first to get a plan. Don't worry, Maze. We're going to burn them down. I hung up the phone and lay back. The isolation was ending. The resistance was beginning. An hour later, my parents returned. This time, they brought a stranger. A man in a cheap suit with a briefcase. "Who is this?" I asked. "This is Mr. Henderson," Robert said. "He's a notary. We need to handle your finances, Mason," Eleanor said, smiling her fake smile. "With you being incapacitated, bills need to be paid. The mortgage, the hospital." "I have autopay," I said. "We need power of attorney," Robert said, cutting to the chase. "Just a temporary measure, until you get back on your feet." He emphasized the word feet with a cruel smirk. "I'm not signing anything." "Mason, don't be difficult," Mom said, pulling a document out of the briefcase. "We are trying to help you. We need to access your accounts to pay for your specialized care. This hospital is expensive. I have insurance. I have savings. I don't need you touching my money." I knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted to liquidate my assets. They wanted to sell my stocks, maybe even the house, and funnel the money into protecting Caleb. They wanted to use my own money to pay for the lawyer that would keep my attacker out of jail. "If you don't sign," Robert threatened, leaning in, "we will petition the court for conservatorship. We have the medical reports about your addiction. We have witness statements from Caleb about your erratic behavior. The judge will grant it to us, and then we will have control over everything anyway. This is just the easy way." They were cornering me. If they got conservatorship, I was legally dead. "Get out," I said. "I'm tired." "We'll leave the papers here," Robert said. "Sign them by tomorrow, or we go to the judge." They left. 10 minutes later, Elijah walked in. He looked furious. He had passed them in the hallway. "I saw them," Elijah said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "They look like they just won the lottery." "They think they have," I said. "Eli, did you bring the laptop?" "Yeah. Tonight," I said. "You have to go tonight. They usually go out to dinner at that Italian place on 5th Street around 7 p.m. That's your window." "And if Caleb is there?" "Caleb is lazy. He'll be watching TV in the theater room. You have to be quiet. Get the SD card. Leave the camera so they don't notice anything is missing." "Consider it done," Elijah said. He squeezed my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Mason. I'm sorry this is happening to you." "Just get the card," I said, staring at the ceiling. "It's the only weapon I have left." That night was the longest of my life. I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the clock on the wall. 7 p.m. 7:15 p.m. 7:30 p.m. Every minute that ticked by was a minute where Elijah could be caught. If Caleb found him, things would get violent. Caleb was a former linebacker, and he had a temper. Elijah was a tech guy, fit but not a fighter. I closed my eyes and tried to visualize my house. The front door. The keypad. I had given Elijah the emergency override code. The foyer. The stairs. The stairs where my life ended. The hallway at the top. The fake ficus plant in the corner. Please be there. Please don't be full. Please have captured it. My phone buzzed. A text from Elijah. It was just a thumbs-up emoji. He was in. Elijah parked his car 2 blocks away. He watched the Mercedes SUV pull out of the driveway. Robert and Eleanor heading to dinner. That left Caleb. Elijah crept up the driveway, sticking to the shadows. He keyed in the code. 9-2-4-7. The lock clicked. He slipped inside. The house was dark, but the blue light of the television flickered from the media room down the hall. He could hear the sound of a football game and the distinct crack of a beer can opening. Caleb was home. Elijah took off his shoes. He moved like a ghost across the marble foyer, the same marble where Mason had lain broken just days before. He saw the dark stain on the grout that hadn't been fully cleaned. Blood. He started up the stairs. The stairs were steep. He looked at the banister. The broken section had already been removed. They were erasing everything. He reached the top landing. His heart was pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. He looked down the hallway. There it was. The ugly, dusty fake ficus plant that Mason's mom had insisted on buying. He crept over to it. He dug his hands into the fake moss at the base. His fingers brushed against something hard and plastic. The camera housing. Yes. He carefully popped the back open. It was a tight squeeze. He needed to get the microSD card out without moving the camera angle too much. From downstairs, a voice boomed. "Hello? Who's there?" Elijah froze. "Caleb." He must have heard a floorboard creak. "Mom? Dad? You forget something?" Caleb's voice was closer now. He was coming out of the media room. Elijah's fingers fumbled with the tiny card. "Come on, come on." He heard heavy footsteps approaching the bottom of the stairs. Click. The card popped out. Elijah grabbed it and shoved it into his pocket. He quickly pressed the plastic cover back onto the camera. "I have a gun," Caleb shouted from the bottom of the stairs. He didn't, but he was bluffing. Elijah looked around. He couldn't go back down the stairs. He darted into the guest bedroom, the one closest to the plant. He slid under the bed just as Caleb reached the top of the landing. He saw Caleb's feet, heavy boots, walk past the door. Caleb walked to the master bedroom, probably checking for intruders there. Elijah waited. He held his breath until his lungs burned. Caleb walked back past the room, muttering, "Damn house-settling noises. Creepy place." He went back downstairs. Elijah waited another 10 minutes until the volume of the TV went back up. Then he slipped out of the room, down the stairs, and out the front door. At 9 p.m., Elijah walked back into my hospital room. He looked pale, sweating, but he was smiling. He held up a tiny plastic chip between his thumb and forefinger. "Got it," he whispered. "Put it in," I said. "Let's see." Elijah opened his laptop and inserted the card. We waited for the drive to mount. A folder appeared. Recordings. There were hundreds of files. Motion-activated clips. "Filter by date," I said. "Last Saturday." Elijah clicked. A list of files appeared. He found the one timestamped 2:14 p.m. "This is it," he said. His hand hovered over the play button. "You ready? Play it." The video opened. The quality was surprisingly crisp, 1080p. The angle was high, looking down the hallway and the top of the stairs. We saw me walk into the frame, back to the camera. We saw Caleb following me, his face twisted in rage. "You selfish prick." The audio was crystal clear. Then the kick. On screen, it looked even more violent than it felt. Caleb didn't just push me. He wound up and planted his boot in my spine. My body flew forward out of the frame. Then the sound. The sickening crash. The thud. The silence. On the screen, Caleb stood there. He was panting. He looked down the stairs. He didn't look scared. He smiled. A small, cruel smile. Then he smoothed his shirt and yelled, "Mom! Dad! Help!" Acting panicked. But the video didn't stop there. A minute later, Robert and Eleanor appeared at the top of the stairs. They must have run up to check something before going down. Or maybe they came from the master bedroom. Robert looked down the stairs. We could hear me groaning in pain from the foyer below. Robert turned to Caleb. "Did you touch him?" Caleb. "He wouldn't give me the money. I shoved him." Robert. "You idiot. You killed him." Eleanor. "Is he moving?" Robert. "No. Look at his legs." Eleanor. "Oh God. The insurance policy. Does it cover suicide?" My blood froze in my veins. My mother. My own mother. Her first thought wasn't my life. It was the life insurance payout. Robert. "Shut up, Eleanor. We can't let Caleb go down for this." Caleb, go to the server room. Wipe the last 2 hours. Format the drives twice. Caleb. "What about the police?" Robert. "I'll handle the police." Mason was drunk. He tripped. If he wakes up, we tell him he's confused. If he doesn't wake up, well, that solves the problem. Eleanor. Robert. Robert. "Do you want your son in prison, Eleanor? Do you?" Eleanor. "No. No, of course not." Robert. "Then we stick to the story. Mason is a drug addict. He fell. Now go." The video ended. Elijah sat back, looking like he was going to be sick. "Jesus Christ, Mason. They are They are monsters. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt a strange sense of calm. The calm of a man who finally has the nuclear launch codes. Make copies, I said. Save it to the cloud. Save it to a thumb drive. Send a copy to your lawyer. What do you want to do? Elijah asked. Call the cops now? No, I said, staring at the screen where my father's face was frozen in a mask of calculation. They wanted me to sign those papers tomorrow. They want to come here and celebrate their victory. So I'm going to let them come. Call Detective Wyatt. Tell him to meet us here tomorrow morning. Tell him to bring handcuffs. The next morning, the atmosphere in my hospital room was electric. I had barely slept, fueled by adrenaline and the grim satisfaction of what was to come. Detective Wyatt had arrived early, at 8:30 a.m. Elijah showed him the video on the laptop. I watched Wyatt's face transform from professional neutrality to hardened anger. He watched it 3 times. That's conspiracy, Wyatt muttered. Tampering with evidence. Assault with intent. This is a goldmine. Can you arrest them? I asked. Oh yeah, Wyatt said, tapping his belt. I can definitely arrest them. I have officers waiting in the hallway. Wait, I said. Let them come in. Let them present the papers. I want them to commit to the lie one last time. I want to see their faces when they realize it's over. Wyatt nodded. I'll be in the bathroom. Door ajar. At 9 a.m. sharp, the Miller family parade arrived. Robert, Eleanor, Caleb, and the notary, Mr. Henderson. They were in high spirits. Robert was even whistling. They thought I was broken. They thought I was defeated. Good morning, Mason, Robert boomed. You look better today. I feel better, I said, keeping my face blank. Excellent, Mom said. She placed a Starbucks cup on my bedside table. I brought you a latte. I know how much you like them. Peace offering. Purchased with my own money, probably. Did you think about our conversation? Robert asked, gesturing to Mr. Henderson to open his briefcase. About the power of attorney? I did, I said. I thought about it a lot. It's for the best, Caleb said, sitting in the visitor chair and putting his feet up on my bed, my paralyzed legs. He kicked my foot lightly. You need someone to look after your assets, bro. You're not exactly in a position to run a business. I looked at Caleb. Take your feet off my bed. Caleb laughed. Or what? You gonna come over here and make me? Caleb, stop it. Mom chided gently. Mason, just sign the papers. Then we can focus on your recovery. We found a lovely facility for you. It's affordable. Affordable? I asked. I have millions in assets. Why do I need an affordable facility? Well, Robert coughed. Legal fees are expensive. We need to reserve cash. For what legal fees? Yours, Robert lied. For potential liabilities. Just sign, Mason. Mr. Henderson thrust the clipboard at me. Sign here, Mr. Miller. This grants your father full control over your bank accounts, real estate, and medical decisions. I took the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. The room was silent. They were all holding their breath, the vultures circling the carcass. I looked up at Robert. One question before I sign. What? Robert snapped, impatient. Why did you tell Caleb to wipe the server? The silence that followed was deafening. Robert's face went pale. What did you say? I said, why did you tell Caleb to wipe the server? And Mom, why did you ask if the insurance covered suicide? He's delirious, Eleanor shrieked, turning to the notary. He's hallucinating again. Give him the pen. I'm not hallucinating, I said calmly. Elijah, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, pressed a button on a remote. The 60-inch TV mounted on the wall opposite my bed flickered to life. The video played. The kick, the fall, the arrival of the parents. Did you touch him? I shoved him. Wipe the server. Does it cover suicide? The audio filled the room, booming and clear. I watched them. It was the most satisfying moment of my life. Caleb's jaw hit the floor. He looked like a child who had just wet his pants. Eleanor gasped and covered her mouth, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an exit. Robert turned purple. He looked from the TV to me, then to Elijah. Where did you get that? Nanny cam, I said. In the plant. You missed one, Dad. Turn it off. Robert roared. He lunged toward Elijah. Give me that laptop. Police. Detective Wyatt kicked the bathroom door open, his weapon drawn. 2 uniformed officers burst in from the hallway. Step away from him, Wyatt shouted. The room erupted into chaos. It's fake, Caleb screamed, jumping up. It's a deep fake. AI. They made it up. Caleb Miller. Put your hands behind your back. An officer grabbed Caleb. Caleb tried to resist. He swung an elbow, but the officer was ready. He swept Caleb's legs, poetic justice, and slammed him face first onto the hospital floor. Ow! My nose! Caleb wailed. Robert and Eleanor Miller, Wyatt said, walking over to my parents. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. You can't do this. Robert sputtered as the handcuffs clicked onto his wrists. We are respectable people. I was protecting my family. No, I said, speaking over the noise. You were protecting him. You never gave a damn about me. Eleanor was sobbing now. Mason, tell them to stop. We're your parents. We were just scared. We didn't mean it. You asked if my insurance covered suicide while I was lying there with a broken back. I said, my voice cold as liquid nitrogen. You didn't call 911. You called tech support to delete the evidence. You are not my parents. You are my attempted murderers. They hauled them out. Caleb was dragged out screaming threats. Robert walked out with his head hung low, defeated. Eleanor had to be supported by an officer because her legs gave out. When the door finally closed, the silence returned. But this time it wasn't the silence of a victim. It was the silence of victory. I looked at Elijah. He was grinning. Nice show, he said. Best screening I've ever attended, I replied. Then, for the first time since the fall, I let myself cry. Not from pain, but from relief. The cancer that had been eating my life, my toxic family, had finally been cut out. This was the moment that changed everything. The moment I took back control. Thank you for listening this far. You guys are amazing. Please like this video and comment Team Mason below so I know you're with me. Your support helps more people find this story and reminds me that family isn't about blood. It's about who has your back when you fall. Now, let me tell you about the secret that came out at the police station. The days following the arrest were a blur of legal activity. My hospital room turned into a makeshift office. I gave statements to the police, the district attorney, and my insurance investigators. Because of the video, the DA didn't hold back. They threw the book at them. Caleb was charged with aggravated assault with intent to cause great bodily harm and attempted manslaughter. Because he had a prior record, the DUI, and a sealed juvenile assault charge I learned about later, he was looking at 15 to 20 years. Robert and Eleanor were charged with accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. But the biggest shock didn't come from the courtroom. It came from the interrogation room. 2 days after the arrest, Detective Wyatt came to visit me. He looked uncomfortable. Mason, there's something you need to know, he said, shifting his hat in his hands. Your mother. She's trying to cut a deal. Of course she is, I said. She'll throw Dad under the bus to save herself. Actually, no. She's throwing your father under the bus to save Caleb. Again. What do you mean? Wyatt sighed. She confessed to something during the interrogation. She was trying to explain why she felt so compelled to protect Caleb, even at your expense. She claims that Robert isn't Caleb's father. The world stopped spinning for a second. What? She had an affair, Wyatt said, 30 years ago, with a man named Gary meant to be Robert's business partner. Caleb is Gary's son. Robert found out about it years ago, but they agreed to stay together to keep up appearances. Robert agreed to raise Caleb as his own, but apparently there was always a weird dynamic. Robert felt guilty for hating the boy, so he overcompensated by spoiling him. And Eleanor felt guilty for the affair, so she let Caleb get away with murder. It all made sense. The twisted, toxic logic of my family finally clicked into place. I wasn't the scapegoat because I was bad. I was the scapegoat because I was the constant reminder of the stable, boring reality they hated. Caleb was the product of passion and secrets. I was just the son. Does Caleb know? I asked. He does now, Wyatt said. Eleanor told him in the holding cell. Apparently, it didn't go well. I felt a strange hollowness. So, I'm the only biological Miller child, and yet I was the one they were willing to sacrifice. It's messed up, Mason, Wyatt said. But the good news is, with this confession, she admitted to everything on the tape. The defense has crumbled. They are all pleading guilty. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Caleb took a plea deal to avoid a life sentence. He got 18 years. No parole for at least 12. Robert and Eleanor were sentenced to 5 years in prison for their role. The judge was particularly disgusted by the suicide insurance comment. He called them moral vacuums. I didn't go to the sentencing. I watched it on the news from my hospital bed. Seeing them in orange jumpsuits didn't bring me joy, but it brought me peace. But the real battle was just beginning. The battle for my legs. 2 weeks after the incident, Dr. Julian came in with my prognosis. The swelling has gone down, he said. We're seeing some twitch response in your left toe. So I'll walk. You have a long road, Mason. You'll need aggressive physical therapy. It will hurt. It will be frustrating. And you might never run a marathon again. But, yes, I think you will walk. I looked at my legs. Withered, weak, but mine. I'll do it, I said. I'll do whatever it takes. And I did. For the next year, my life was a cycle of pain and sweat. I hired Sarah, a specialized physical therapist. She was a former Army medic, tough as nails and twice as pretty. She didn't pity me. When I fell, she didn't pick me up. She told me to get up. Your brother broke your back, she would say when I wanted to quit. Are you going to let him break your spirit too? That anger, that cold, hard anger, fueled every step. 1 step, 2 steps, falling, getting up, 3 steps. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. The memories of the stairs were too vivid. I bought a penthouse in the city, single level, no stairs. I sued my parents in civil court. I took everything, the retirement condo, the cars, the savings, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to make sure they had nothing to come back to when they got out. I donated a large chunk of it to a charity for victims of domestic abuse. A year later, on the anniversary of the fall, I received a letter from prison. It was from Caleb. Mason, I'm sorry. I really am. It's hard in here. I'm scared. Can you put some money on my commissary books? We're brothers. Blood is thicker than water. I read it. Then I took a lighter and set the corner on fire. I watched it burn until it was just ash in my ashtray. Blood is thicker than water, I muttered. But so is concrete. I grabbed my cane, a sleek, black carbon fiber stick that looked more like a fashion accessory than a medical device. I walked to the elevator of my building. I didn't need a wheelchair anymore. I walked with a limp, and my back ached when it rained, but I was standing. I went down to the lobby where Sarah was waiting. We weren't just patient and therapist anymore. We were something more. Ready? She asked, smiling. Ready, I said. We walked out into the sunlight. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet, tasted like freedom. I had lost my family. I had lost my physical perfection. But I had found something much more valuable. I found out that you can be broken and still be whole. And sometimes you have to let the people who weigh you down drop so you can finally learn to fly. Part 7. The climb, approximate. 2,600 words. The adrenaline of a courtroom victory is a potent drug. When the gavel banged down and I saw my family, my tormentors, led away in handcuffs, I felt like I was floating. I felt invincible. For about 48 hours I lived on that high. I was the man who took down the giants. I was the survivor. But gravity always wins. And when the adrenaline faded, I crashed. Hard. The reality of my life wasn't a movie scene where the hero walks into the sunset. The reality was 3 a.m. in a new, wheelchair-accessible apartment that smelled like fresh paint and loneliness. The reality was phantom pains shooting down legs that refused to obey me. The reality was realizing that putting them in prison didn't magically fix my spine. Dr. Julian had been optimistic, but he had also been honest. The hardware is fixed, Mason, he told me during a post-op checkup. The titanium rods are holding your vertebrae together. But the software, the nerves, that's on you. And it's going to hurt more than the break did. He wasn't lying. My days became a blur of torture disguised as therapy. Sarah, the physical therapist I had hired, was relentless. She was a petite woman with hair always pulled back in a messy bun and eyes that missed nothing. She didn't treat me like a millionaire businessman. She didn't treat me like a victim. She treated me like a broken machine that she was determined to fix. Again, she would say, standing over me as I lay on the mat, sweat pouring into my eyes, trying to lift my left leg just 3 inches off the ground. I can't, I gasped, my muscles trembling uncontrollably. It feels like fire, Sarah. It feels like someone is pouring acid on my nerves. Good, she said, not an ounce of sympathy in her voice. Fire means the nerves are waking up. Fire means you're alive. If you couldn't feel the burn, I'd be worried. Now lift it again. I hated her in those moments. I hated her, I hated Caleb, I hated my parents, and most of all, I hated myself. I was a 35-year-old man who needed help using the bathroom. I was a CEO who couldn't walk to the fridge to get a glass of milk. The shame was a heavy, wet blanket that suffocated me every time I looked in the mirror. There were nights I wanted to quit. One rainy Tuesday in November stands out. I had spent the morning on a conference call with my legal team regarding the civil suit against my parents. My lawyer, a shark named Mr. Sterling, was walking me through the liquidation of my parents' assets. We've seized the retirement accounts, Sterling said over the speakerphone, and the vacation cabin in Aspen. We're looking into your mother's jewelry collection next. Apparently, she tried to hide some diamonds in a safety deposit box under her maiden name, but we found it. Take it all, I said, staring out the window at the gray city skyline. Every cent. We are, Mason. But there's a complication. Your father took out a second mortgage on their primary residence to pay for Caleb's initial defense attorney. The equity is almost gone. We might not get much from the house. I don't care about the money, I said. I just want the house sold. I don't want them to have a home to come back to. Understood. We'll proceed. After the call, I felt drained. Empty. I tried to transfer myself from my desk chair to my wheelchair. My hands slipped. I fell. I hit the floor hard, jarring my hip. I lay there on the carpet, staring at the wheels of the chair spinning uselessly above me. I tried to push myself up, but my arms were exhausted from therapy. I was stuck, like a turtle on its back. I didn't call for help. I didn't reach for my phone. I just lay there and sobbed. Great, heaving sobs that racked my body. I cried for the little boy who just wanted his dad to be proud of him. I cried for the lost years. I cried for the sheer, pathetic unfairness of it all. The door buzzer rang. I ignored it. It rang again. Then, the sound of the keypad code being punched in. Sarah. She had a key for emergencies. Mason. Her voice echoed in the hallway. You didn't answer your text. I brought Thai food. She walked into the office and saw me on the floor. Most people would have rushed over, gasping, asking if I was okay. Sarah didn't. She walked over, set the takeout bag on the desk, and sat down on the floor next to me. Comfortable down here? She asked, crossing her legs. I wiped my face, furious that she saw me like this. I slipped. Leave me alone. Carpet is soft, she noted. Good for the lower back. Sarah, get out. No, she said calmly. I'm not on the clock. I'm just a friend with pad thai. And I'm not eating alone. She opened the containers right there on the floor. The smell of peanut sauce and lime filled the room. She handed me a pair of chopsticks. "You're not going to help me up?" I asked, confused. "You can get up," she said. "I've seen you do 50 dips on the parallel bars. You're not stuck because you're weak, Mason. You're stuck because you stopped fighting. Eat some chicken." We ate on the floor in silence. And then she started talking. Not about my back, but about her life. She told me about her ex-husband who left her when she was deployed overseas. She told me about losing her dad to cancer. She told me about the scars she carried that no one could see. "We're all broken, Mason," she said, looking me in the eye. "Some of us just wear our casts on the outside. Your family broke your spine. Don't let them break your identity. You are not the victim. You are Mason Miller, the guy who built a real estate empire from a garage. That guy is still in there. He's just taking a nap." That night changed everything. It wasn't a miracle cure, but it was a shift in perspective. I stopped trying to get back to who I was before the fall. That Mason was gone. I started building a new Mason, a harder, stronger version. The months rolled by. Winter turned to spring. The civil lawsuit concluded. I was awarded $4.2 million in damages. Basically everything my parents and Caleb had, plus their future earnings, though I doubted they'd earn much making license plates. I received the inventory list of the items sold from my parents' estate. It was satisfying in a grim way. My mother's collection of designer handbags sold. My father's golf clubs sold. The Mercedes SUV they drove away in while I was being airlifted sold. I took the money and did exactly what I promised myself. I started the Miller Foundation. We focused on two things: providing legal aid to victims of domestic financial abuse and funding spinal cord research. Writing that first check felt better than any luxury car I had ever bought. But the biggest battle was still the stairs. I had developed a phobia. It was irrational, maybe, but every time I saw a staircase, my heart would race. I would break out in a cold sweat. I could feel the phantom boot on my back. I avoided buildings without elevators. I planned my routes to ensure flat terrain. Sarah noticed. Of course she did. "We need to tackle the monster," she said one afternoon in June. We were at the gym. I was walking now, using forearm crutches, but walking. My legs were still weak and I had a noticeable limp, but I was upright. "I'm not ready," I said. "You are," she insisted. "There's a flight of stairs in the park. 6 steps. Concrete. Wide railing. We're going there today." "Sarah." "Mason, you conquered your parents. You conquered the courtroom. You conquered the paralysis. It's just concrete." We went to the park. It was a beautiful day. Kids playing, dogs barking. The stairs were innocent enough. Just a small connector between two paths. But to me, they looked like Mount Everest. I stood at the bottom, gripping my crutches so hard my knuckles turned white. "Just one," Sarah said, standing beside me. "I'm right here. I won't let you fall." I looked at her. Her eyes were fierce and kind. Over the last 6 months, she had become my anchor. I realized then that I wasn't just doing this for me. I was doing it so I could walk toward her. I took a breath. I lifted my right leg, the weaker one. I placed it on the first step. It shook. I put my weight on it. Flashbacks hit me. The shout, the kick, the weightlessness, the crack. I squeezed my eyes shut. No, that was then. This is now. I pushed up. I stood on the first step. "Good," Sarah whispered. Again. Took me 10 minutes to climb 6 steps. By the time I reached the top, I was drenched in sweat and shaking like a leaf. But I was at the top. I looked down. I hadn't fallen. I turned to Sarah. She was smiling, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she said. I dropped my crutches. I didn't care. I reached out and pulled her into a hug. I held her tight, burying my face in her neck. She smelled like vanilla and sunscreen. "Thank you," I whispered. She pulled back and looked at me. The air between us changed. It wasn't patient and therapist anymore. It was a man and a woman who had been through war together. She kissed me. It wasn't a Hollywood kiss. It was tentative at first, then desperate. It was a kiss that said, "I see you. I know your damage, and I want you anyway." That was the moment the old Mason truly died, and the new one was born. The old Mason needed his parents' approval to feel loved. The new Mason realized love wasn't something you begged for. It was something you built step by agonizing step. My business rebounded too. The scandal of the trial had actually worked in my favor. Clients respected my resilience. I closed the biggest deal of my career that summer, a 40-story sustainable living complex downtown. I insisted on being the lead engineer for the accessibility features. Every ramp, every elevator, every railing was designed by me, personally. I made sure no one would ever feel trapped in my buildings. Life was good. It was different, but it was good. But the past has a way of trying to claw you back one last time. It came in the form of a notification from the Department of Corrections. My mother, Eleanor, had requested a visitation. I stared at the email on my phone. My thumb hovered over the decline button. But then I paused. I had questions. Not about the accident. I knew what happened. I had questions about the why. About the secrets. About Caleb being my half-brother. I realized I needed one final look at the woman who gave birth to me. Not to forgive her, but to dissect her. To make sure I didn't carry a single gene of her cowardice in my DNA. "I'm going," I told Sarah that night. "Do you want me to come?" she asked. "No," I said, kissing her forehead. "This is something I have to do alone. I need to close the door." The prison was a gray, soulless concrete box an hour outside the city. It smelled of bleach and despair. A smell I was all too familiar with from the hospital, but without the undercurrent of hope. I sat in the visitation room behind the thick plexiglass. I had my cane hooked over the back of my chair. I sat upright, wearing a tailored Italian suit. I wanted her to see me, not the broken victim she left on the floor, but the success she tried to destroy. Eleanor was led in. She looked small. The woman who used to terrorize country club waiters and nag me about my tie was gone. In her place was a frail, gray-haired woman in a baggy orange jumpsuit. She looked 20 years older. Her skin was sallow, her eyes darting nervously. She sat down and picked up the phone. I did the same. "Mason," she said. Her voice was cracked. "You look good." "I am good," I said. My voice was steady. "Why did you ask for this meeting?" "I wanted to see my son," she said, attempting a smile that faltered immediately. "And I heard about the civil suit. Mason, you took everything. Your father is having heart palpitations. We have no money for the commissary. We can't even buy extra soap." "You have food and shelter," I said coldly. "That's more than you wanted for me. You wanted me in a state facility, remember? Affordable care." She flinched. "We were desperate. Caleb was in trouble." "Caleb is always in trouble," I said. "And now I know why you protected him. I know he isn't Dad's son." Eleanor went rigid. She looked around, as if the guards were listening to her secrets. "Who told you that?" "Detective Wyatt. You confessed, remember?" She slumped in her chair. "It was a mistake. A moment of weakness 30 years ago. Your father, he never let me forget it. He hated Caleb, but he stayed because of his reputation. He made me promise to keep Caleb happy, so he wouldn't turn out bad. It was our penance. So you sacrificed your legitimate son for your affair child," I summarized. "You broke my back to keep your secret." "I loved you, Mason," she pleaded. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You were the easy one. You were smart, successful. You didn't need us. Caleb needed us." "I didn't need you?" I laughed, a harsh sound in the quiet room. "I spent my whole life trying to buy your love. I paid your bills. I bought your cars. I let you critique my life. I needed you to be a mother. And when I was dying on the floor, you stepped over me to save him." "I'm sorry," she wept. "Please, Mason, can you put a little money in our account? Just for essentials? We are suffering in here." I looked at her, really looked at her. For years I had seen a powerful matriarch. Now, I saw a pathetic, selfish narcissist who still didn't get it. She wasn't apologizing because she hurt me. She was apologizing because she was uncomfortable. She was still using the word family as a transaction. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a photo. It was a picture of me and Sarah, standing on the top of those 6 steps in the park. We were smiling, triumphant. I held it up to the glass. "This is my family now," I said. "Family are the people who help you up, not the ones who kick you down." I put the phone back on the hook. "Mason! Mason, wait!" I could hear her screaming through the glass, even without the phone. She was banging on the partition. I stood up. I took my cane. I turned my back on her. I walked out of that prison and I never looked back. I blocked the prison number on my phone. I blocked the letters. That part of my life was a book I had finished reading, and I threw it into the fire. 6 months later, I was standing in the foyer of my new house. It wasn't a smart home penthouse this time. It was a house in the suburbs, with a big yard for Baron and Sarah's golden retriever to play in. It was warm. It was lived in. And it had a staircase. It was the centerpiece of the house. A grand, sweeping staircase, not unlike the one in my old house. When we bought the place, the realtor was hesitant. "We can install a lift," she had offered. "No," I had said. "I want the stairs." I stood at the bottom. My leg brace was on. My cane was in my hand. Tonight was special. I had a ring in my pocket. Sarah was upstairs, getting ready for dinner. I took a deep breath. Step 1. Crack. No, just the wood settling. Step 2. Pain. Yes, but pain means I'm alive. Step 3. Balance. I climbed. Slow. Steady. Rhythm. Clack, cane. Step. Drag. Clack, step, drag. I reached the middle landing. I paused to catch my breath. I looked down. It was a long way down. But I wasn't afraid of falling anymore. I knew that if I fell, I could get back up. I had done it before. I continued. Step 15. Step 18. Step 20. I reached the top. I wasn't panting from fear. I was panting from exertion. I felt strong. I walked down the hallway. No fake plants hiding cameras here. Just photos of us on the walls. I opened the bedroom door. Sarah turned around. She was wearing a red dress. She looked beautiful. "You took the stairs?" she asked, smiling. "Every single one of them," I said. I walked over to her. I didn't kneel, my knees couldn't handle that yet. But I took her hand. "Sarah," I said, "you taught me how to walk again. But more importantly, you taught me where I wanted to go. I don't want to take another step in this life without you." I pulled out the ring. "Will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes, yes, you stubborn, wonderful man." We kissed. And in that moment, the ghost of the old staircase vanished forever. The memory of the kick, the betrayal, the cold hospital room. It all dissolved into the warmth of the home we were building together. Life is funny. It breaks you in ways you never expect, just to see how you put the pieces back together. Caleb is currently serving year 2 of his 18-year sentence. He writes me sometimes. I never open them. They go straight into the shredder. He is a stranger to me now, a ghost from a past life. My parents are still in prison. I hear my father has developed a heart condition. I pay for his medication through an anonymous lawyer, not because I forgive him, but because I am not him. I don't let people suffer if I can help it, even if they deserve it. That is the difference between us. I still have pain. Some days, when the weather turns, my back feels like it's being crushed in a vice. I have scars that map out the geography of my trauma. But I am happier than I have ever been. The Miller Foundation has helped over 200 victims of financial and physical abuse get legal representation this year alone. We helped a young woman last week who was pushed down a flight of stairs by her husband. When I met her, she was terrified, convinced no one would believe her. I sat with her. I showed her my cane. I told her my story. "You are not alone," I told her. "And you are going to win." The look in her eyes, the spark of hope, was worth more than any deal I ever closed. I am Mason Miller. I was kicked down, broken, erased, and left for dead by the people who were supposed to love me. But I didn't stay down. I climbed back up one agonizing step at a time. And the view from here is beautiful. Thank you so much for walking this long, difficult road with me. My story is extreme. A brother's jealousy, parents' betrayal, and a literal broken back. But the core of it is something many of us face. Toxic loyalty. We are taught from birth that family is everything. We are told to forgive, to forget, to turn the other cheek because blood is thicker than water. My story is the brutal proof that this is a lie. Family is not DNA. Family is behavior. If someone consistently hurts you, manipulates you, or puts your safety at risk, they have forfeited the title of family. You have the right to fire your toxic relatives. You have the right to protect your peace, your finances, and your mental health. I learned that you are your own savior. No one was coming to save me on those stairs. I had to save myself by installing that camera. I had to save myself by doing the PT. I had to save myself by cutting them off. I want to hear from you. What is the hardest boundary you've ever had to set with a family member? Did you feel guilty, or did you feel free? If this story resonated with you, or if you simply support the journey of rebuilding a life from the ashes, please type "good" in the comments below. It tells me that you value resilience and justice. And if you are currently in a situation where you feel trapped by family obligation, remember my staircase. The climb is hard, it hurts, but the view from the top, the view of freedom, is worth every single step. Stay strong. Build your own sanctuary. Mason.